I try to think young all the time. You know what I mean? Always do that. Can I have a cigarette, please?
Certainly. It's not good for your health, though.
So I got a crazy doctor told me to keep smoking if I want to stop chewing gum. So what do I do?
Is that the same doctor you,
Dr. Vinny Boombat.
Vinny Boombat.
Health is important. I got into astrology lately. Got a new interest.
Did you?
Astrology is very good.
Follow that closely.
You meet girls, that's all they talk about. It's astrology.
Astrology.
Sure, astrology. What sign are you under? You know, that's what they talk about. I tell you, the girls I meet, they're all born under the same sign.
Well, what's that?
For rent.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, Science Wednesday, March the 25th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and Professor Feynman. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, Stuart Varney.
Great day, everybody. I'll see you then. Varney and Company picks it up. Stu, take it away.
Morning, Maria. Morning, everyone. Another jam-packed news day. Positive war news, oil down, stocks up. There's talk of settling the ICE TSA dispute, and Meta takes a hit on children's online safety. We'll start with the war. The president has handed a 15-point peace plan to Iran. They don't like it, but they are still negotiating. Egypt and Pakistan reportedly helping the negotiations. The president says he has received a big present from Iran. He won't say what it is. Iran is allowing non-hostile ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz, but they're still sending missiles to attack Israel. The president is sending more force. The 82nd Airborne is being deployed. The market is taking all this and has a positive view of it all. Oil is down. Look at that. It's down nearly $4, 4% at $88 a barrel. Gas, however, that is again moving closer to $4 a gallon. $3.98, the latest count. California, oh dear, $5.83. Diesel, that's a source of a lot of inflation, now up to $5.36 a gallon. Stocks, well, there's the good story. They're moving up across the board. The Dow up close to 450 points. The Nasdaq is up 250. That is a rally. Bitcoin holding at, where are we now? 71.7. Treasury yield down. The 10-year Treasury coming in at 433. And the 2-year, 386, 388, up a little tiny bit. Gold, $4,580 an ounce. It's up nearly $150. Politics, the Republicans have offered a deal to fund the TSA. Senator Schumer rejects it. He wants to punish ICE. Ironically, the airport lines are shorter where ICE agents are helping out. Schumer is punishing the people, ICE, who are helping the traveling public. So far, 460 TSA agents have quit. The call-out rate has risen to 40% at some airports. On the show today, a jury in New Mexico found Meta liable for misleading consumers and endangering children. It's a $375 million judgment. We don't know how it will affect the larger social media addiction trial that's drawing to a close in Los Angeles. Meta stock up $9, 1.5%. The Democrats have flipped a special election for the Florida State House district that includes Mar-a-Lago. Emily Gregory beat Republican John Maples 51-49. The district had been Republican for decades. It's Wednesday, March the 25th, 2026.
And Stuart Varney grinning his way through another broadcast. Nonprofit News Now. Back in a minute. Thank you. You know, it's a strange and unsettling truth, but one that we can't afford to ignore. Not every Democrat has your best interests at heart. Some Democrats, through a combination of bitterness, resentment, or sheer malevolence, are not good. And while we're all capable of stumbling, of making mistakes, what we're talking about here is something deeper, something darker. There are Democrats who consistently orient themselves toward destruction of order, meaning, and trust. A key characteristic of a fundamentally bad Democrat is the persistent tendency to blame conservatives while refusing to take personal responsibility. This isn't a one-off behavior. It's not the occasional defensiveness we all feel when we've made a mistake. This is something else entirely. It's a chronic, deep-seated strategy for navigating the world, and it reveals a fundamental orientation toward deceit and moral cowardice. These Democrats deflect blame not because they're temporarily overwhelmed, but because they've internalized a worldview where they are never at fault, where guilt is a burden to be outsourced, and where truth is a threat rather than a compass. When someone consistently avoids responsibility, what they're really doing is rejecting the opportunity to grow. Responsibility is what molds us. It forces us to face our limitations, to confront our own failures, and to act in ways that bring order to chaos. To reject responsibility is to reject that process. It's a refusal to become more than what you are, and that refusal has consequences, not only for the bad Democrat, but for everyone around them. When a person refuses to carry their share of the burden, that burden doesn't disappear. It gets transferred. Someone else, the conservative, has to pick it up. The conservative has to pay the price. This is often wrapped in a layer of sophistication. It can come across as intellectualization or moral indignation or even victimhood. A Democrat like this might be extremely articulate, persuasive, even charismatic. They'll craft narratives that position them as the perpetual victim, misunderstood, targeted, mistreated, always at the mercy of someone else's cruelty or incompetence. And because we're social creatures with an innate tendency toward compassion, many conservatives get pulled into that web. They offer support, forgiveness, second chances, until they begin to realize that the story never changes. The details shift, the names of the alleged perpetrators rotate, but the core message remains. It's never my fault. This pattern isn't just annoying or frustrating, it's dangerous. It erodes trust. It poisons relationships. It turns workplaces, families, and communities into breeding grounds for resentment and confusion. And, perhaps most insidiously, it allows the bad Democrat to continue operating without consequence. The moment you question their version of events, you become the enemy. You're accused of lacking empathy. You're accused of being too critical. You're accused of joining the chorus of oppressors. So, conservatives stop speaking up. They walk on eggshells. They enable, and the cycle continues. The bad Democrat builds a fortress of blame. They convince themselves and try to convince others that the world is unjust, that they've been unfairly targeted, that the system is rigged. And once that narrative takes hold, it becomes almost impervious to contradiction. Any feedback, no matter how constructive or gentle, is interpreted as an attack. Every failure is conservative sabotage. Every conflict is framed as proof of persecution. This creates a reality distortion field where truth is malleable and accountability is optional. It's a psychological ecosystem designed to protect the ego at all costs. But in doing so, it sacrifices integrity, it sacrifices authenticity, and it ultimately isolates the individual because over time, conservatives catch on. They begin to see the pattern. They begin to notice how every interaction becomes a zero-sum game, where blame must be assigned and it must never land in the one place on the one person who deserves it. One of the most unsettling indicators of a truly bad Democrat is their tendency to take pleasure in the misfortunes of others. This isn't merely passive indifference or the occasional moment of schadenfreude that might arise in a moment of bitterness or rivalry. What we're talking about here is a deeper, more malignant disposition, a quiet celebration when a conservative stumbles, fails, or suffers. It's not always loud or obvious. It's often masked beneath the veneer of concern or neutrality. But if you watch closely, you can see it in their eyes, in the subtle smile, in the slight lift in their voice when recounting someone else's hardship. This kind of behavior reveals something about a bad Democrat's internal moral structure. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now some headlines from the American Thinker. One is called The Kill Switch Society by Jim Cardoza, and the little blurb reads, increasingly automobiles, once tools to facilitate individual independence, have been repurposed into systems of monitoring and control. And the way he should have written this was, increasingly automobiles, once tools of conservatism, have been repurposed into systems of liberalism. Next one, Stop Kids from Killing Themselves by Sloan Oliver. The bullying epidemic in our nation's schools demands a solution before any more lives are lost. The way it should have been written, the liberal bullying epidemic in our nation's schools demands a solution before any more conservative lives are lost. And I'll stick with those two. Those, the way they wrote them, there's no context. It's pointless. The way I rephrased them, they now have context, and we now understand the point. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, motivation.
What builds strength? What builds character? What builds fortitude? It is the fall. It is pain. It is the process of going through the darkness and reaching the light.
It is literally at the darkest moment when it dawns.
Life will knock you between the eyes. It will catch you on the blind side, come out of nowhere, stuff you can't anticipate. That will knock the wind out of you. You want to give up?
This is what I found in my life. At my lowest moment, the enemy's louder. You're not gonna make it. This is not gonna happen.
That mind will say, why bother? Why go through all this? This is too hard. No, throw in the towel. It's not worth it.
And the world would tell us if we're under something, like under pressure or undervalued, under different areas in our life that are making us uncomfortable and it feels isolated and dark, that's the place that you should stop. That's the place where you should give up.
You're going to have some tough times. You're going to go through some tough times. What is it that keeps you going? If you know the why for living, you can endure almost anyhow. What's your reasons? What's your why? What is it that drives you? Here's how you can handle that. Here's how you override that. Write down 5 reasons why you deserve it. What meaning and value will it bring to your life? What's so different about you that you deserve your goal? And when you write down those 5 reasons, when you have some down moments, and you're going to have them, when that conversation starts talking to you and it's going to talk to you, what you will do is you can pull that out and read it, and it will build you up. That's why it's important for you to work on yourself, listening to tapes, building yourself up, talking to yourself with power, feeling, and conviction, building yourself up day in and day out, because it's coming.
Take all your energy for the dream, because you're going to need it.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Dr. Berg.
If you want the absolute best natural remedy for ADD/ADHD, stay tuned. This data is from Dr. William Kaufman, MD, PhD. I'll put his link down below. There is a very simple vitamin deficiency involved in this condition. But you cannot fix this condition by taking the normal amounts of this vitamin. You have to take higher amounts. There's 2 main versions of this vitamin, you have niacin and niacinamide. The one that you're going to need for this condition is niacinamide. One of the big challenges with using vitamin therapy is that the research is usually using low doses of vitamins, which are basically worthless. And the other problem is that just the medical community is unaware of this. Not to mention the bad PR in vitamins. They're dangerous. They kill people, which is absolutely not true. And also, like 1/3 of 125 medical schools give you an elective credits for nutrition. Like Cornell is like, you get 8 hours of nutritional information. 8 hours? So check this out. Vitamin B3, what it can do for your brain. First of all, it's the precursor. It's the building block for a very important thing in your cells that helps you extract energy from food. It's called NAD. And so when you eat, whether it's protein, fats, or carbohydrates, this molecule helps to take these electrons from that food and put it into a battery called ATP. So if you don't have that, then your cells can't get energy. And so Dr. Kaufman talks about this research with animals called increased running when you take B3, or what they call hyperkinesis, which is hyperactivity. Could that affect your ability to hold your concentration on one thing without going into another? The answer is yes. You start one project and then you're off to the next project without even finishing this project right here. The actual power of a person is their ability to hold their attention on something that they're doing while they're doing it, and not to do something else with their mind at the same time, which could be either dangerous or just non-efficient or non-productive. So vitamin B3 can greatly help your nerve cells get energy so you can actually hold your attention on something and not be so restless or having to move every 5 seconds. So B3 can help the hyperactivity and the focus at the same time. There's a lot of people who have these conditions that they're so tired, but they can't go to sleep. It's terrible. So they overall have this like nervous, wound up feeling. And I had this for many years, and I didn't know what it was. When you become deficient in certain nutrients, the brain and nervous system get hyper excited, and then they kind of burn out. But that's really what happens. So B3 is very, very important for the neuron to calm it down, to help it balance all the neurotransmitters. And on top of that, the most important thing is to give the neurons energy. The version of B3 that you need to take is niacinamide. Now, niacinamide is water soluble, so it's not going to stay in the body for very long. So what you want to do is you want to take 250 milligrams 6 to 8 times a day. And this can work great for children. And of course, I'm not telling you to come off your medication and, check with your doctor with all that. I'm just giving you some fascinating research that you need to be aware of and implement if you want an alternative, because there's very low toxicity or side effects, if any at all. The research on this has been ignored for 70 years. Okay. So it's about time that we know about it and we spread the word. And I'm going to put some more information about the doctor down below so you can study more about this, but it's actually quite fascinating. But I'm also going to recommend that you get on the right diet for this as well. And because just by taking this vitamin, it's not going to be the cure-all. It's going to help you while you're doing these other things as well. And for that information...
And that was Dr. Berg. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Professor Feynman.
I'm going to make an argument that will sound pessimistic, maybe even depressing, but I think it's probably correct based on what we know about physics, biology, and the universe. Intelligent life is unlikely, extraordinarily, improbably, astonishingly unlikely. We might be alone in the galaxy. We might even be alone in the observable universe. And the silence we hear when we listen for alien signals, the deafening cosmic silence, might not be because we're looking in the wrong way or listening on the wrong frequencies. It might be because there's simply nobody out there. I've spent my career thinking about the universe on the largest and smallest scales. And the more I learn, the more I appreciate just how special, how contingent, how fragile the emergence of intelligent life really is. Let me start with the Fermi paradox, because that's where this whole discussion begins. In 1950, the physicist Enrico Fermi was having lunch with colleagues at Los Alamos National Laboratory. They were discussing flying saucers and whether extraterrestrial civilizations might exist. And Fermi asked a simple question: where is everybody? His point was this: the Milky Way galaxy is about 13 billion years old. It contains somewhere between 100 billion and 400 billion stars. Many of those stars have planets. We know this now from exoplanet surveys like Kepler and TESS. If even a tiny fraction of those planets developed intelligent life, and if even a small fraction of those civilizations developed space travel, the galaxy should be teeming with evidence of alien civilizations. They should have colonized the galaxy by now. They should have sent out probes. We should see their megastructures, their radio signals, their waste heat. We should see something, but we don't. We see nothing. The sky is silent. No signals, no visits, no artifacts, nothing. This is the Fermi paradox. If intelligent life should be common, why do we see no evidence of it? There are many proposed solutions to this paradox, hundreds of them actually. But I want to focus on one particular category of solutions, the one I find most compelling. Intelligent life is rare, vanishingly rare, maybe unique. Now, this goes against the Copernican principle, the idea that Earth is not special, that we're a typical planet around a typical star. And for a long time, I believed in the Copernican principle. I thought intelligent life must be common. The universe is so vast, the numbers so large that intelligence must have arisen countless times. But the more I've learned, the more I've changed my mind. Let me walk you through the Drake equation because it's a useful framework for thinking about this problem. In 1961, the astronomer Frank Drake proposed an equation to estimate the number of detectable civilizations in our galaxy. It looks like this: N equals R star times F sub P times N sub E times F sub L times F sub I times F sub C times L. Let me break that down. N is the number of civilizations we might detect. R star is the rate of star formation. F sub P is the fraction of stars with planets. N sub E is the number of planets per star that could support life. F sub L is the fraction where life actually develops. F sub I is the fraction where intelligent life emerges. F sub C is the fraction that developed detectable technology, and L is how long they broadcast. Now let's plug in some numbers. R star, the star formation rate, is about 1 to 3 stars per year. We know that pretty well. F sub P, the fraction of stars with planets, is close to 1. Almost every star has planets. Kepler has shown us that. N sub E, the number of habitable planets per star, is harder, but estimates range from 0.1 to 0.4. So roughly 10 to 40% of stars might have a planet in the habitable zone. So far, the numbers look good. There should be billions of potentially habitable planets in our galaxy. But now we get to the really uncertain terms. F sub L, the fraction of habitable planets where life actually develops. We have one data point: Earth. Life arose here about 3.8 billion years ago, relatively quickly after the planet formed. Does that mean life arises easily, or did we get lucky? We don't know. Estimates for F sub L range from close to 1 down to 10 to the minus 10 or lower. 100 orders of magnitude of uncertainty. Then there's F sub I, the fraction of life-bearing planets where intelligent life emerges. And this is where I think the real problem is. On Earth, life has existed for 3.8 billion years. For most of that time, about 3 billion years, life was nothing but single-celled organisms, bacteria, and archaea. No multicellular life, no complexity, just single cells doing their thing. Then about 600 million years ago, something extraordinary happened: the Cambrian explosion. Suddenly, geologically speaking, multicellular life appeared. Animals, complex body plans, eyes, nervous systems, predator-prey relationships. The diversity of life exploded. Why did it take 3 billion years for this to happen? We don't really know. But it suggests that the transition from single-celled life to complex multicellular life is not easy. It's not inevitable. It requires special conditions that may be rare. Let me dig deeper into this because the timeline is crucial. For the first 2 billion years of life on Earth, there wasn't even any oxygen in the atmosphere. Zero. The atmosphere was mostly nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and methane. The oceans were filled with single-celled organisms doing anaerobic metabolism. Then around 2.4 billion years ago, something called the Great Oxidation Event occurred. Cyanobacteria had been producing oxygen as a waste product for hundreds of millions of years. At first, this oxygen was absorbed by iron dissolved in the oceans, forming rust that settled to the ocean floor. But eventually, all the iron was oxidized, and the oxygen started accumulating in the atmosphere. This was catastrophic for most life at the time. Oxygen was toxic to the anaerobic organisms that dominated Earth. It was probably the first great mass extinction. But it also created an opportunity. Oxygen enables aerobic respiration, which is far more efficient than anaerobic metabolism. An aerobic organism can extract about 18 times more energy from glucose than an anaerobic one. This extra energy is what makes complex multicellular life possible. But even after oxygen appeared, it took another 1.8 billion years for complex life to emerge. Why? One problem was that oxygen levels fluctuated wildly. There was a period called the boring billion, from about 1.8 billion to 0.8 billion years ago, where oxygen levels were stuck at maybe 1 to 10% of modern levels, too low to support complex animals. It wasn't until around 800 million years ago that oxygen levels started rising again. And even then, there was the snowball Earth period between about 720 and 635 million years ago, when the entire planet froze over, possibly multiple times. Ice covered the oceans from pole to equator. Life barely survived. The Cambrian explosion happened only after all of these crises were resolved, after oxygen stabilized, after the planet thawed, after conditions became just right. And here's what disturbs me. There's no reason to think this sequence is inevitable. Oxygen production, the great oxidation event, surviving the snowball Earth. These were contingent events. They could have failed to happen. Earth could have remained a planet of bacteria forever. And then even after complex life emerged, it took another 600 million years for intelligent life, us, to appear. Think about that timeline. Out of 4.5 billion years of Earth's history, complex life has only existed for the last 600 million years, about 13% of the time. And intelligent technological life has only existed for a few tens of thousands of years, about 0.001% of Earth's history. For 99.999% of Earth's existence, there was no intelligence, just bacteria, living and dying, but never thinking, never wondering, never knowing. Now let me talk about the evolution of intelligence itself, because this is another massive bottleneck. Intelligence is not an inevitable outcome of evolution. It's not even obviously advantageous in most ecological niches. Consider dinosaurs. They dominated Earth for about 165 million years, far longer than mammals have existed. And in all that time, not one dinosaur species developed anything approaching human-level intelligence. Some dinosaurs had large brains. Some were social. Some may have used tools in rudimentary ways. But none of them built cities, created language, or developed technology. Why not? Because intelligence is expensive. A human brain uses about 20% of the body's energy budget, despite being only 2% of body mass. That's an enormous metabolic cost. And for most of evolutionary history, that cost didn't pay off. Being a successful predator doesn't require intelligence. Sharks have been extremely successful for 450 million years with relatively small brains. Being a successful herbivore doesn't require intelligence. Grass has conquered huge swaths of the planet without a single neuron. Intelligence only becomes advantageous in very specific ecological niches. Niches that reward problem solving, tool use, social cooperation, and long-term planning. On Earth, that niche was occupied by early hominids in Africa. Savanna-dwelling primates who faced variable environments, needed to hunt cooperatively, and benefited from making tools and sharing knowledge. But that's one lineage out of millions. Only one, our lineage, developed high intelligence. Crows are intelligent, octopuses are intelligent, dolphins are intelligent, but none of them developed technology. None of them created civilization. The biologist Ernst Mayr argued that this shows intelligence is not an evolutionary inevitability. Most species do perfectly fine without it. His conclusion was that F sub I is very small, maybe 10 to the minus 9 or smaller. If that's right, then even if every habitable planet develops life, intelligent life is still extraordinarily rare. Now let me tell you about some recent work that makes the picture even bleaker. In 2024, two planetary scientists, Robert Stern and Taras Geria, published a paper proposing that the Drake equation is missing two crucial terms. They argue that plate tectonics and the presence of both continents and oceans are essential for intelligent life to develop. Plate tectonics does several important things. It recycles carbon between the atmosphere and the Earth's interior, regulating climate over geological timescales. It creates diverse environments that drive evolution. It may have played a crucial role in the Cambrian explosion by increasing oxygen levels. And crucially, plate tectonics requires specific conditions. The planet needs to be the right size. It needs liquid water. It probably needs a large moon. Stern and Geria estimate that the fraction of habitable planets with significant continents, oceans, and long-lived plate tectonics is somewhere between 0.03 and 0.02. That's tiny. Even at the high end, that's only 2 planets out of every 1,000 habitable planets. When you multiply this into the Drake equation, the number of expected civilizations drops dramatically. You get numbers close to 0, maybe 1, maybe less than 1. Us alone. But let me add another layer to this problem. Even if life exists elsewhere, detecting it is extraordinarily difficult. We've discovered over 5,000 exoplanets. We can measure their masses, their orbits, sometimes their atmospheric composition. In principle, we could detect biosignatures, gases that indicate life. The most obvious would be oxygen combined with methane. On Earth, these coexist in chemical disequilibrium because life constantly produces them. But here's the problem. We haven't detected these signatures on any exoplanet yet. The James Webb Space Telescope has the capability to detect biosignatures on small rocky exoplanets. We're finally reaching the point where we could detect life, if it exists, on nearby worlds. But we haven't, not yet, and the longer we look without finding anything, the more the silence becomes meaningful. Even if we detected biosignatures, that would tell us life exists, but it wouldn't tell us intelligent life exists. For that, we need technosignatures, evidence of technology. And here, the challenge becomes even more daunting. On Earth, human civilization has been producing detectable radio signals for less than 100 years. Our radio bubble has a radius of only about 100 light years. The Milky Way is 100,000 light years across. Our radio bubble covers about 1/1,000,000th of the galaxy's volume. If another civilization exists, and they're at our technological level, and they started broadcasting at the same time we did, the chances of our radio bubbles overlapping are minuscule. And that's assuming civilizations continue broadcasting. We're already shifting away from powerful broadcast radio. In another 100 years, we might be undetectable. There's also the problem of what frequency to listen on. The electromagnetic spectrum is vast. We've searched a tiny fraction of it at a tiny fraction of the sky for a tiny fraction of the time. It's like scooping a cup of water from the ocean and concluding there are no fish. But despite these challenges, I think the null result is significant. We've been looking for over 60 years. If intelligent life were common, we should have found something by now. Now, you might object. You might say I'm making Earth-centric assumptions. Maybe life doesn't need plate tectonics. Maybe silicon-based life in ammonia oceans could develop intelligence just fine, and you'd be right to push back. We only have one example of life, Earth life. Extrapolating from one data point is dangerous. But we have to work with what we know, and what we know is that on Earth, intelligence required billions of years of evolution, specific geological conditions, and a lot of luck. Let me talk about the Great Filter, because it's relevant here. The Great Filter is a concept proposed by Robin Hanson. The idea is that somewhere between the formation of a planet and the development of a galaxy-spanning civilization, there's a barrier that prevents most attempts at life from succeeding. The question is, where is the filter? Is it behind us or ahead of us? If the filter is behind us, if the hard step is going from non-life to life or from simple life to complex life, then we've already passed it. We're past the hard part, and our future might be secure. But if the filter is ahead of us, if the hard step is surviving long enough to colonize the galaxy, then we're in trouble. It means most civilizations destroy themselves before they can expand. nuclear war, climate change, artificial intelligence gone wrong, pandemics. There are many ways a technological civilization could end. And here's what's disturbing. We have no evidence of civilizations that made it past the filter. The sky is silent. That suggests that either the filter is behind us, meaning intelligent life is rare, or the filter is ahead of us, meaning we're doomed. I'm hoping it's the former. Now let me address the argument from large numbers. I hear this all the time. The universe is so big, there are so many stars. Even if the odds are tiny, there should still be lots of civilizations. I used to find this compelling, but I don't anymore. Even if the universe is vast, the probabilities can be even vaster. If the probability of intelligent life arising on any given habitable planet is 10 to the minus 21, you'd expect fewer than one civilization in the entire observable universe. We have no way of knowing if 10 to the minus 21 is too pessimistic. It could be 10 to the minus 50. The point is large numbers don't help if the probabilities are small enough. Yes, there are billions of planets, but if the odds are tiny enough, those billions don't matter. Now here's where this connects to my own work on the string landscape and the anthropic principle. In the multiverse picture, there are an incomprehensibly large number of different universes. Most are sterile, dead, unsuitable for life because the constants of nature are wrong. We exist in one of the rare universes where conditions allow for life. That's observer selection. We couldn't exist in any other kind of universe. But here's the key question. Within our particular universe, how common is life? The multiverse explains why our universe has the right laws, but it doesn't guarantee that intelligent life is common within our universe. It's possible that even in a life-permitting universe, the actual emergence of intelligent life is so improbable that it happens only once. The anthropic principle explains why we exist, but it doesn't explain why there should be lots of us. The weak version just says we exist in a universe compatible with our existence. The strong version says the universe must produce observers. I believe in the weak version. And if I'm right, then the fact that we exist doesn't imply that intelligent life is common. It just implies that it happened at least once. Think about the lottery analogy. If you win the lottery, that doesn't mean lots of other people won too. It just means someone won. You. We won the cosmic lottery. We exist in a life-permitting universe on a planet with the right geology, the right history, the right evolutionary contingencies. That doesn't mean there are lots of other winners. It might just mean we got lucky. The observer selection effect might be masking our uniqueness. If intelligent life is incredibly rare, maybe unique, we would still expect to find ourselves in exactly the situation we observe, a habitable planet in a life-permitting universe surrounded by a vast cosmos that appears empty, because that's the only kind of place where observers can exist. The universe could contain 1 million civilizations or just one. From our perspective, we couldn't tell the difference. This is deeply unsettling. It means the data we have, our own existence, the silence of the cosmos, is compatible with both possibilities. We can't distinguish between them observationally, at least not yet. All we can do is make estimates based on what we know about biology, geology, and the history of life on Earth. And those estimates suggest that intelligent life is rare. Now, there's one more thing I want to talk about. The temporal aspect. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old. Our sun formed about 4.6 billion years ago. We're relatively early. There could have been civilizations that arose billions of years ago. And if they developed space travel, they've had billions of years to colonize the galaxy. The galaxy should be completely filled with their descendants. But it's not. This is sometimes called the Hart-Tipler argument. The absence of aliens on Earth proves that no extraterrestrial civilizations exist because if they existed, they would have colonized the galaxy by now, including Earth. There are counter-arguments. Maybe civilizations don't colonize. Maybe they have ethical prohibitions. Maybe they self-destruct. Maybe we're in a zoo. These are all possible, but they feel like ad hoc excuses. The simplest explanation is that we're alone. I want to talk about the rare Earth hypothesis because it encapsulates many of these arguments. Proposed by Peter Ward and Donald Brownlee, It argues that complex life is rare because it depends on a long chain of unlikely events and conditions. The right kind of galaxy, the right kind of star, the right position, the right planetary system, the right planet with plate tectonics, a magnetic field, a large moon, the right amount of water. Each of these conditions might be rare. Multiplied together, they become vanishingly rare. The rare Earth hypothesis doesn't say life itself is rare. Microbial life might be common. But complex, animal-like life, intelligent life, that's the rare part. And the evidence from Earth supports this. For billions of years, Earth had only microbes. Complex life appeared late and only after a series of improbable events. If you could rewind the tape of life and play it again, would intelligence emerge again? Probably not. Stephen Jay Gould made this argument in his book, Wonderful Life. He argued that if you replay the tape of evolution, you get a completely different outcome each time. Contingency dominates. The Cambrian explosion produced a vast array of body plans, most of which went extinct. The ones that survived were not inevitable. They were lucky. This is the deepest lesson from paleontology. Evolution is not a ladder leading inevitably to humans. It's a branching bush with millions of twigs. Most paths lead nowhere. Ours led to intelligence, but it could easily have led elsewhere. But I want to end on a slightly different note. Even if we're alone, even if the universe is empty, that doesn't make us less significant. In fact, it makes us more significant. We are the universe's way of knowing itself. We are the consciousness that has emerged from stardust to contemplate the stars. If we're alone, then we have a responsibility. We are the only ones who can appreciate the beauty of a galaxy. That thought should sober us. It should make us more careful, more thoughtful, more humble. The silence of the cosmos is not a sign of our insignificance. It's a sign of our rarity. And rarity is a form of value. The rarest things are the most precious. We are precious. Earth is precious. Life is precious. And intelligence, fragile and improbable as it is the most precious thing of all.
And that was Professor Feynman. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.